Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone in today's class for the 6th elementary grade. Our textbook is Weekend 3 and today inshallah we will cover Unit 7, Fun on the Weekend, Reading and Writing, on pages 54 and 55. This lesson will be presented by me, teacher Mazen Harbi, and the sign language by Mr. Fawaz Al-Agil. So let's begin. Before we begin, a quick revision on our last lesson. In our last lesson, we had played a game, a very interesting game, that is called the verb game, where in this game I had to read a couple of sentences and I ask you to look at these or this table of verbs and underline or circle what is the verb that you have heard. So how it goes, it's like this. When we play this game, is I ask you that if you can write and play the verb game to beat a partner. And I ask that imagine that you are having there is a partner in front of you, maybe your classmate, maybe a family member, or a friend of yours, okay? And all you had to do is to have him look at this table and then you read a couple of sentences. And once he hears those sentences, then he will underline what is the verb that is or that comes in these sentences. So what we did last time is that as a practice in the last lesson, is that when I said a couple of sentences and I ask you to try to and repeat those sentences and try to decide what are the verbs that I did mention in those sentences. So for example, just a quick reminder of our last lesson when I talk about a sentence like I practiced my English. I practiced my English. And then once you hear this, then what you will do is that you will underline the word practiced. You will underline the word practiced. Also, other sentence I said is that I kicked a ball. I kicked a ball. And then what you will do is to underline the verb kicked because I mentioned it in the sentences. Not only this, but even when I continue to say even more sentences like I played football. I played football. I watched a DVD. I watched a DVD. He stayed at home. He stayed at home. So this is how it goes. You will have a table of different verbs and what you will do is that you're going to write down, or even in this case, if you already have the verbs in front of you, you're going to write down and also to underline the verbs that you are hearing. And the other game we also played is that when you have an empty table like this, and what you're going to do here is that we're going to listen to the teacher or to the person you are playing with, and once he reads the sentences, what you're going to do is to write down all the verbs that you hear in those sentences. And once you finish, then you can show it to him and he will decide whether the verbs, you got all the verbs or not. Let's just make a quick practice on this one. So here at this table, as you can see on your books, you will see a table like this with a star at the corner. And what you're going to do now is that you are going to hear sentences and I would like you to try to remember or write down the verbs that you hear. So let's start with the first sentence. They cleaned the car. They cleaned the car. You played outside. You played outside. You watched a DVD. You watched a DVD. She cooked breakfast. She cooked breakfast. We stayed at school. We stayed at school. You studied a little. You studied a little. He practiced English. He practiced English. I kicked the ball. I kicked the ball. So now we heard each sentences twice. So now it is your turn to write down the verbs that you heard. So I'm guessing that you already wrote those verbs that you heard, and you will have a list similar to this. We mentioned the verb cooked. He cooked a meal. Practiced, played, watched, kicked, studied, cleaned, and stayed. So those were the verbs that we mentioned and we did play with in this game. So this is what we have in our last lesson. It was very interesting verb game. It helped us to know more verbs and also to practice verbs in the past simple tense. So now let's get to know our objectives in today's lesson. At the end of this lesson, we hope that you will be able to decide the past form of verbs and also to ask and answer questions with how many and how much, and also make sentences with some and any. So the first thing we will do, I would like you to open your books on page 54. I would like you please to open your books on page 54. Now, on page 54, you will see a table similar to this. And what I want you to do with this table is, I want you to listen first and read and circle the answers that you can see here in this chart. So what we're going to do is that we're going to listen to two friends talking about how to make certain food. And while they are talking, we'll see or we'll come across questions like, how much flour do we need? Or how many tomatoes do we need? Or for example, why don't we make a pizza? So we will listen to a couple of sentences and questions in this conversation. And once we hear it, we're going to answer them and write down or circle the answer right here in this table. So let's first get to know the content of this table before we start listening. So they want to make a recipe or a certain food, and here they wrote what do they need. So they said that we need flour, we need oil, we need cheese, we need tomatoes, we need peppers and mushrooms. And exactly the amount of each one of them and how much do they need, it's written here. So for example, this is the first answer is giving to us, which is how much flour do they need? They need 2 cups. And how much cheese they need? It's not mentioned. It's on our part to listen and write down or choose the answer. And how much oil do they need? It's upon us to listen and choose either half a cup or 1 cup. Let's see what the information we have in this table. So, how many tomatoes they need? The answer we have, which is this one, they need 4 tomatoes. And how many peppers do they need? Is it 2 or 3? We still don't know. After we listen, we will know the answer. And how many mushrooms do they need? Do they need 10 or 8? After we listen, we will know the answer and we're going to circle it. And what do they have and what do they don't have? So the things that they don't have, here we have yes or no. So if they have something, we will see here yes. If they don't, we will see here no. So the only thing that they don't have is that oil. They don't have oil because we're going to listen at a sentence similar to this. We have some flour, but we don't have any oil. we have some flour, but we don't have any oil. And here, why don't we make a pizza? This is what they want to make. So, and it's upon us to continue all the rest, whether if they have flour, yes or no. They have, let's say, they have cheese, yes or no. They have tomatoes, peppers, mushrooms. So all of this information, we can find it and we can answer after we listen. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to listen to these two women talking about how to make a pizza, and after this we are going to answer based on our listening to this conversation. So let's begin. Now we're going to listen for the first time. The first time, I suggest you listen only for listening. Don't try to write anything, just listening. So let's begin.
Are you hungry?
Yes, I am. Is there anything to eat?
Why don't we make a pizza?
That's a great idea. What do we need?
Let me see. We need flour, oil, cheese, tomatoes, peppers and mushrooms.
How much flour do we need?
We need 2 cups of flour.
And oil? How much oil do we need?
Half a cup of oil.
And cheese? How much cheese?
3 cups of cheese.
Wow, that's a lot of cheese. What about tomatoes? How many tomatoes do we need?
4 tomatoes.
Okay, 4 tomatoes. How many peppers?
2 peppers.
How many mushrooms do we need?
10 mushrooms.
Very well. Now we listened to this conversation for the first time. We had an idea about the ingredients or the amounts that they want to make in order to make a pizza. Now we're going to listen for the second time, and now it is time to start circling the answers that you hear. So let's begin by listening for the second time.
Are you hungry?
Yes, I am. Is there anything to eat?
Why don't we make a pizza?
That's a great idea. What do we need?
Let me see. We need flour, oil, cheese, tomatoes, peppers and mushrooms.
How much flour do we need?
We need 2 cups of flour.
And oil? How much oil do we need?
Half a cup of oil.
And cheese? How much cheese?
3 cups of cheese.
Wow, that's a lot of cheese. What about tomatoes? How many tomatoes do we need?
4 tomatoes.
Okay, 4 tomatoes. How many peppers?
2 peppers.
How many mushrooms do we need?
10 mushrooms.
Very well. Now we did listen to this conversation, and I'm very sure that we had some answers. So let's begin with the left side of this table. So they talk about that they said that they needed 2 cups of flour. So how much oil do they need? Do they need half a cup or 1 cup? What do you think? Of course, they said that they need half a cup of oil. And what about cheese? How much cheese do they want? Is it 1 cup or 3 cups? Excellent. They said that they need 3 cups of cheese. And let us move on here on this side. And how many peppers do they need? Do they mention that they need 2 or 3? Of course, they said that we need 2 peppers. And what about mushrooms? How many mushrooms did they say that they need? Is it 10 or 8? Very well, at the end they said that they needed 10 mushrooms. So these are the answers of this conversation, where we wrote down, we listened, and we wrote down all the things that they said that they will need in order to make a pizza. Now, let us move on to the second exercise. Here, what I would like you to do is to circle yes or no question as we did before in the chart, and to practice it in pairs. So the same table, I would like you to practice the same table with a friend of yours or a family member or even a classmate. So try to think of any recipe or any food that you would like to make, and just have write down the ingredients in a table similar to this, and try to practice it often with your partner. Now let us move on to number 3. Here what I would like you to do is to write 2 sentences with some, any, and, but. So here we did listen with the conversation when the woman said that we have some flour but we don't have any oil. So what I would like you to do is that when you practice this table with your partner is to have to write down sentences like this. For example, you may say that we have peppers but we don't have any oil, or we have some tomatoes but we don't have any flour. So just to write sentences similar to this, and it should be should start with we have, and to mention the things that you have, and with but to mention the things that you don't have. Try this and practice it to write down more sentences about the things that you have and you don't have. And now I would like you please to turn to page 55. I would like you please to turn to page 55. Now on page 55, as you can see, and this is very important, is how to order from a restaurant. So can you be a waiter or waitress and take an order from a partner? Usually when we go to a restaurant, there are a couple of phrases that we use in order to make any order. And also as a customer, but even as a waiter, there are also a couple of phrases that you can use if you want to take order from the customers. So try to choose a partner, maybe in your as a family members or even your classmate, and try to act as a waiter or as a waitress. As a waiter and waitress, take a piece of paper and ask them this: what would you like? What would you like? This is the question that waiters usually ask customers when they want to have, or when they are ready to order a meal. And you can have a simple menu like this and just ask them this simple question: hello, what would you like? And after they making orders, or after they choosing what do they like, and you the phrase that you should end with, you said, sure, just a moment. Sure, just a moment. These are the phrases that you should use when you play as a waiter. But if you decide to be a customer, then we have other phrases that we can use. So for example, if your partner asks you what you would like, or the waiter asks you what you would like, you would say, I'd like. And then you can choose any dish or any order from this menu, and after you finish, you would say, please. For example, I would like a French potatoes, please. I would like a cold soda, please. I would like to have a salad, please. So these are the phrases that we usually use when we go to restaurant, as a waiter or waitress, or as a customer. Practice this, you will have a lot of fun. And now, at the end of this lesson, it's important that you are able to Ask and answer questions with how many and how much, and also make sentences with some and any. And after this, it's important that you read an English menu and try to order from a restaurant as a waiter and also as a customer. And now we have reached the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.